Hi, everybody. It's Helen Butler from Inspired People Solutions. Thank you for joining us on another podcast today. We are joined by Joe Palmer from Pointer Remote Roles. Hi, Joe. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Let's kick off today by, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the background and history of Pointer Remote Roles and the inspiration behind starting your business?
Sure can. So my name is Joe. I live on a farm about half an hour south of Wagga in southern New South Wales. And I started Pointer about 3 years ago after I had a good look at my network of girlfriends who had left corporate careers and were working in jobs that they were either super overqualified for or were not working as much as they wanted to or weren't working at all when they had fallen in love with farmers and moved out of the city. And so I had this epiphany that it was ridiculous that it wasn't just my girlfriends that were in this situation, that there were people all over Australia, men and women, who weren't engaging in the workforce as much as they either wanted or should be, and that we as a society had invested a huge amount of money in their qualifications and their experience, and us as a society, as an economy, were missing out on them participating in the workforce. So over the last 3 years, the business has evolved a bit, and that has then been, I guess, that's the buzzword of COVID, I think, is pivot. How we've pivoted again in the last period of this pandemic, that we're really focusing on how remote work can really benefit regional Australia. So we really focus, like our pitch is that we build capacity in communities, businesses and individuals to leverage remote work, and we really see ourselves as the bridge between metro and rural Australia, and how we can connect the two, and how this new world that we will find ourselves in post pandemic can really be just that amazing opportunity for the regions, but also for people that maybe have always dreamed about that tree change that now seems so much more a reality than ever before.
And there was like a prior, we were speaking about this before, but there was a real resistance to working from home or working remotely prior to this pandemic hitting our shores. And it seemed like the middle of the March, the whole country changed. We all pivoted and we're like, there's that word again. Everyone had to rush from home. And it was amazing, the capability of organisations to do that and the resilience in people to set themselves up. And I think any potential resistance or barriers that were put in place by managers or organisations pre-COVID-19 have been eradicated completely. And there's been a real success of organisations and people to manage their workloads professionally and prove that they can work from home or work remotely. Would you agree?
100%. And I think that, like, really highlighting that is that people have, like, and look, it's not for everyone. This is not for everyone, and it never has been and never will be. But I think what is so amazing is that we have seen this enormous mindset change, and we have seen the productivity and all of these things that you've just talked about. But that isn't even just in how I would even be promoting remote work normally. This has been when you've got both spouses working from home, when you're putting remote learning in with kids in the mix, when you're actually really stressed because there's a really stressful situation happening outside your door but globally at the same time, and that we're still seeing this silver linings to this, I think is just mind-blowing. So I think for me, it's been a really interesting thing, and I think moving forward it's going to be a really big game changer for our business, in that my first roadblock and stumble that I had with conversations with people quite often was the fact that they were still confused with even the term remote. They were like, oh, so hang on, so do you work with mining companies or nursing in Indigenous communities? Because they were picturing remote as in the outback, whereas now I don't even have to explain the term remote. Everyone knows what working remotely means. Everyone knows what what that entails. Everyone's heard of Zoom, all of these things that a lot of the workshops and stuff that we'd done in the past was exposing people to this sort of technology, often for the first time and often with it being very overwhelming, whereas everyone has literally just been dumped in it and this is now how you work. And I think the businesses that will just thrive out the other side of this are the ones that take the good out of it. Go back to the office, yes, but you'll probably be renting half the office space because half your team will work half the week from home. And I think that it's just going to be a really, really different world that we see ourselves in out the other side. And look, a lot of power put into the employees' hands. I think that we've always just been so governed by the mindset of business owners, by companies, by managers, whereas now I think people, again, coming out into this new normal, will have realistically, it will be more them not how do I try and negotiate working from home part-time or whatever. It'll be more like, okay, my boss is going to have to pretty much give me reasons why not, because I've already proved that I can do this when I've got my kids there, when my husband's there, when I'm ready to like start using paper towel to wipe my butt because there's no toilet paper and I can still do all of this stuff. Let alone when we are doing a 9 to 5 and how much more work they're going to be able to get out of people. I think that that's a really amazing thing for the workforce themselves, so for the individuals that are doing the work.
Yeah, and I think, when we had to have or try and convince people about flexibility or remote working pre-COVID-19, there was potentially an inherent mistrust of employees to do the right thing at home. But I think now there's been an expectation, there's been a shift in that employees actually will do the right thing. And yes, they may get up from their desk to hang their washing out but that's important to also have, that break away from your computer. But it's also, I think, opened up much more collaborative and more communication lines between team members. So especially when working from home was a thing, but if you had a partner working from home and then you had kids, you had to rejig a whole heap of stuff about who could look after kids, etc., etc. So workforces adapted and teams adapted to when people could actually put in their core hours. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they were sitting there 9 to 5. It could have been they do 3 hours here and 3 hours there, and that's all the capability that they have for the day. But it became more managing by output, managing on hitting your KPIs rather than managing by presenteeism. And I think I have seen an uptake in people wanting to change their working arrangements. Like you said, someone wants to spend 4 days working from home, 1 day going into the office. And there will be a lot more of that, I think, as this shakes out, as restrictions ease, that there will be a lot more of that opportunity. Something that's come up quite a bit too is people potentially wanting to make that sea change or tree change or get out of the big concrete jungle. And again, this is not for everybody, but I've come across a few people who are Geelong, Colac, a bit more of a regional change, looks more up their alley. And then when they have the opportunity to do 4 days working from home and do a commute into the city 1 day a week, that's something that's opening up for them. So with your experience working nationally and working in the regions and the talent, what are the areas or industries or professions that you've really seen come to life and be really tapped into from the working remotely in your model?
I don't think of it as being industry specific. I think of it as being organisational mindset and ability to adapt and pivot. But I think, like I was just saying, that as far as the power being put into the worker, we are now finally seeing that work happens where the worker is, not at work. Yeah. And I think that industries or not even industries, individual organisations that acknowledge this, like I said, take the good with it, make a hybrid mix or make it work. And those that take this on board and don't try and keep forcing back to normal. Back to normal is done. And as soon as people get over that and grieve it and do whatever they need to do to realise that that's the case.
Yep.
You can jam that square peg in round hole. Like, there will be plenty of places that'll be doing it. Okay, we're back in the office, back to normal. We're all back to this. That might work for 12 or 18 months.
Yep.
What will happen is your competitor will offer flexibility because they see that not only is it the way that you attract and retain the best talent, but it's fiscally better. Like, it is financially better doing it like this. Your employee staff turnover is reduced dramatically because they have a work-life balance. The environmental factors, the fact if you halve your team's commute by half, I think just even the environmental impact that is going to have internationally. Like, you've even seen all the footage of like the air quality over big areas, of just the improvements and those sorts of things, and the fact that there's dolphins back at Bondi Beach, and that there's all of this amazing environmental things and benefits that are coming out of this. If you're trying to force that old normal, your business won't be as profitable. I genuinely think that. And I'm not pushing for everyone to go send everyone and work remotely from home and be rid of offices forever. Like, I'm not ever, and I have never advocated for that. But I think that when you get your head around the fact that we already have the tools, your employees have already shown you that you can do this in whatever way works for your business, I think the opportunities that that's going to mean for individuals and then for the regions is that because you no longer have to turn up to the office to do your job, for a lot of people, obviously, again, this is a massive generalisation, because obviously there are some people, there's people with client-facing jobs. There's some things that you actually have to be there. I'm generalising with those, obviously, that are not client-facing jobs. But the fact that you might fly to Brisbane once a quarter and you have 3 days up there, which is not a punish, let's be honest. If you get to go and live in a hotel for 3 nights and go out to dinner and do training with the team and all of these things, but then you can go back and for 11 and a half weeks a quarter, you are working productively, you have a work-life balance, you're living somewhere where you want to live, that you're not commuting. All of these things I think for individuals are going to have such a huge impact. But if that place that you now want to call home is in the regions, for us already living here, the benefits that come with that is just so incredible. So increase in local spend, more families in schools, maybe a family moves, someone's got a remote job, but the other one has an entrepreneurial mind or brain, and they open a beautiful store in the main street of a country town, because there's lots of places you can do that. My first business, I rented in a beautiful old convent in the main street of Holbrook, and I paid $60 a week rent. Like, wow. You could do that. Like, it's crazy. So I think that the impact that that's going to have just across the country is really exciting, in a really, really big way.
I agree, absolutely. With pointer remote roles, how does that work? And can you give us an explanation of how you marry up talent and jobs, and what's the function of your business?
Sure. So, like I said, we're a capacity building company. We have the recruitment arm of the business, which we have had a lot of iterations over the years of what that looks like, and we have really, moving forward, are really looking at as a place that if your business is now set up to engage people that work remotely, you can advertise a job on the job board. We have vetted candidates that are on the books, so that our candidates actually pay to be on the platform as well. So we do soft skills assessments, like reference checks from previous employers, and their profiles up in their portal, and then businesses can advertise. And for the job seekers themselves, a business can't actually get in there and trawl their profiles, so they have to advertise a role to then, if you're then interested in having your profile put forward to an employer, then you can. So we've got a lot of people that are working for other people that are sitting on the books looking for that remote job, and then might once they've got it, then may relocate somewhere else. Or we have a lot of freelancers that use us as another sort of string in their bow for work as well. But as far as moving forward and where we're spending a lot of our time is that education piece around how we can support individuals and businesses to work this way and to employ people and manage people this way, but also working with individual communities to help them become remote ready. So we have the framework for individuals, businesses and communities of what it looks like to be remote ready.
Yep. And
working with communities so that they can use remote work as an attraction and retention of population piece. So we will be in the coming months launching our community finder, which is literally if an individual, they could be regionally based already, but if they're sitting in the city and they say, okay, look, we've got this, we can do this remotely. I can come to Sydney or Melbourne once a quarter or once a month or whatever to come in and touch base with the team or and everything else is done remotely. I can move. Okay, where do I want to move? Like we talk about that even a generation or two ago, people in the city still had some form of connection with the country. There was always an uncle that had a farm that you'd go and spend school holidays. And over the last couple of generations, that's really, just disintegrated. There's very little connection for a lot of people with the regions. And so that concept of moving, they love the idea, especially after doing 3 months of isolation in an apartment in the inner city with your kids in there and everyone may not be friends anymore, but the idea of space and that fact that they're not client facing in their job and that they spend a long time commuting every day, that, okay, well, I want to move to the country, but I don't even know where to start. And so we've seen that is a genuine issue for people that are looking to relocate. And so our community finder is really cool. So you can literally say, okay, right, Helen, I want to go, okay, so I want to move to, say, Queensland or New South Wales. So I can put that in my thing. I want to be within 30 Ks of the beach, but I want to be within 150 Ks of a regional airport. There has to be a primary school and we play tennis, so a tennis club. And you can be clicking through all the filters and things, and what the community finder will then do, it'll sort down and pop up all of the communities that actually meet your requirements. And then you can actually contact directly someone that lives there. So it'll generally be like the economic development officer in that town. And you can say, look, we're really interested in moving here. Like, we'd love to come down. They can say, okay, we'll stay in this motel and we can introduce you to the school principal. And it's tennis time. You can actually come and have a hit with the tennis club. They play on Thursday nights or things like that. And you can actually then instantly have that connection with the community. And then what will be another search function in there will be a remote ready community. So you can actually search by, okay, I want to move somewhere where Pointer has already worked with the community to really build that remote readiness, that community around supporting people working remotely or employing people remotely, and really knowing that there will be that sort of support and that network when you get to that community, because that can often be really daunting for people when they're relocating if they don't know anyone that they're doing it with. So we're very, very excited to be launching that. It's going to be really exciting.
Oh, and I think, we sold up in Melbourne and travelled around Australia for 14 months trying to find our next spot. Having a community finder would have been a much cheaper and more economical way of doing that. But, when we were going through, we were like, wine region, beach. And they were like, it's funny when you're faced with a situation where you look at, well, what actually do I want to do in my life? Where do I want to live? Having a tool that people can tap into. And schools was a big thing for us. Jobs was a big thing for us. But, to have that capability where you're looking at lifestyle, but also combining a career in, a tool for you is really beneficial. And when we made our move to here, we found an amazing community. Like, the call to the school was just beautiful. We were half an hour on the phone to the gorgeous lady and she was giving us all these tips about how to do things, and it was so much more personal in the regions, and it was just a delightful experience tapping into a community. So you get that a little bit more, I think, in the regions, and I think sometimes if you can adapt a little bit more professionalism or bring some more technically savvy ideas to the table, it makes them more competitive and makes a move to the regions just that little bit less stressful.
100%. 100%. And I think as well, like if you know that there is already, like I said, that remote readiness and that concept of like, okay, this town has a co-working space, they have good coffee, they've got a strong internet connection, like all of those things that could be an issue for me bringing my job with me, if they know those issues have been alleviated, then it just makes that transition smoother. And you're right, look, you've got to think about this as well, that people in general want you to move to their community. Like I said, a bigger population means often you can attract more services. There's it's more social. There's more members at your tennis club. There's more kids in the school. Schools stay open. Schools have an extra stream of classes going through. Like it's you don't have to feel like, oh gosh, are we going to fit in? Do they want us? Because in general they do, and you bring a different perspective. You bring diversity. All of these things, that different way of thinking, that different experiences and all those things, like that's what makes community. And I think that what I really genuinely hope, and I think that we will see out the back of this pandemic, is that people will have that epiphany of like, you only get to do this once. Like, why are we doing this? I think that priorities have changed dramatically for people. Do we need all this stuff? Mm-hmm. Buying habits have changed, like really tough for people in retail and sellers of stuff, but people are doing things differently. They shop differently, they behave differently, they are living differently. Like people, I know that we always put in like winter veggies and went into Bunnings to get like our seeds to put the thing in the start of the pandemic, didn't even think of it. My husband's like, there's no seeds. Like I didn't even think of that, because people were like, well, I'm going to grow my own vegetables. Like I'm going to do these things. So just a really interesting shift in things. We also needed to buy new chooks, and like that's hilarious that all of the pullets, all the baby chooks were all gone, and people didn't realise that they would be feeding them the whole of the pandemic before they even start laying eggs.
That's right. We've got a neighbour with 30 chooks who constantly got any scraps? But yeah, that's one of the things, you know, at the start of the pandemic, when my husband and I were talking about it, I'm like, let's just redo our veggie garden. Like, and he's like, but people are buying toilet paper. I'm like, I don't even understand that. I'd be thinking about feeding myself as opposed to the other scenario. Something that we have touched on previously, and you have, I think, a very strong and I think it's quite a great view, but salaries. Let's talk about salaries for remote workers, because historically, when flexibility's been brought up, people have been bargaining from a position of, oh, it'd be really great if my employer would let me work from home 2 or 3 days a week, and I could take a pay cut for that because I get the opportunity to work from home previously. So let's hear Joe Palmer's take on that terrible stance.
Let me just pull out my soapbox.
Yeah.
So obviously I've been very anti this concept from the start. We have very much positioned ourselves to advocate on the candidates' behalf when jobs come onto our platform. To be honest, it hasn't happened, and I don't know if how I have marketed our business or if people hear my rants from someone and they don't try us too much. But we really strongly advocate on behalf of our candidates and realistically say to businesses, do not come to us because you think this is a cheaper option as far as what you will pay these people. Yeah. One, they won't work for you, so that's your first thing. So don't come here and sort of think, oh, I'll like knock 20 grand off because, oh, it's pretty good. Like I'm letting them work remotely. So they don't have the costs of living in the city. That is 100% not your call to make. If you are willing to pay a certain amount for the skills and experience and a role, then you should expect to pay that when you're employing someone remotely. So where you as a business make your fiscal savings and where you make money off remote work is all of the other things, So that staff turnover, you are not paying recruiters and you are not having downtime while you train new staff because you're turning over staff because you're not paying them enough.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You make financial gains because the people you put on are more productive. The statistics are completely overwhelming. And that rhetoric around, oh, how do I know they're working if I can't see them? There is absolutely like no evidence, very, very few. And you hear, obviously, with everything you hear, like the worst case scenarios of examples of people running amok when they're working from home and being completely unproductive. To be honest, they were probably doing the same thing in the office. It's just you didn't notice. But because their bum was on the seat, you thought they were working. So yeah. I don't think that that's got anything to do with the remote side of things. But what huge challenges businesses, well, not businesses so much, but individuals face when they're working remotely is the complete opposite, that they burn out, that they don't have proper boundaries in place as far as switching off and having some differentiation between work and home. So that is very much more the case. So, but the thing is that if you have got those boundaries, again, this is all the stuff that we advocate for. Don't just throw these people in and then not set up boundaries and give them the assistance to have boundaries to work effectively, but not 100% of the time. But the productivity that you get out of people that are working remotely, like my feed on all social channels has been like, I actually cannot believe I've still got this much work done, even though I've been doing homeschooling and I've been doing all of these bits and pieces. So if you are planning on saving money by hiring remotely, go for it, but don't do it on wages. Do it on all of the other benefits that you're going to get out of employing people this way. But I think as well, just on that, like, I think that the wage is one thing, but I think that something that you do need to consider is that there are some additional costs sometimes where you're making savings here and it definitely ebbs and flows between. But I am absolutely in the complete corner of the fact that you need to be seeing your remote staff at face-to-face at least once a year. Least once a year. You need to fly them to your head office, or do you know what is even better? Take all your senior leadership, or you take them to where they live. So if you've got someone living in Moree that works remotely for you, take the board there and have a week and do your board meetings there. Go and spend in that town. Put 7 people in hotel rooms, eat at the pub every night, do all of these things and actually get to experience how your remote employee lives. And you watch, they will work for you forever. You show them the love like that and you will get longevity out of staff. There is no doubt about it. Like, I just think that there is so many amazing things that you can do. Like, so a girlfriend of mine owns a co-working space in Dubbo called The Exchange. She bought the old telephone exchange in the main street of Dubbo and has turned it into this absolutely beautiful co-working space. And we're really like encouraging businesses, go and have your offsite in Dubbo. You don't have to do it like on the Gold Coast, which of course is really nice, but you can do things so differently that you've got wine bars and beautiful restaurants and this beautiful space to work out of that's in the main street of Dubbo. God knows how much you'd save on like the cost of actually having an offsite. But if you're flying everyone into somewhere, why not have it in a regional thing? You can fly from, I think, Sydney, Brisbane and even Melbourne, I think, into Dubbo. Don't quote me on that. But you can fly in from major centres into these regional centres and then have your offsites there. Like, it's such a fabulous way to be just doing things differently. And to be honest, like, mix it up. Like you said, you were travelling around Australia looking for places to live. Like, go somewhere where there's beautiful wine regions, or go to the mountains, or go and do things differently.
And especially now too, like, we've had such devastation in Australia with the bushfires and now this pandemic. Go and support those regions, because secretly and quietly, they're getting ready for us. They're getting ready for when the borders open up. The regions are embracing for a wave of tourism. And I think now is a time to have a more personal experience.
And to be honest, you can go and test drive a new town to live in, let's be honest.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So for Pointer going forward, your offerings are pretty great in terms of matching businesses and candidates and people regionally looking for you. And also the community finder is amazing. Can you tell us where to go to check you out, or what people can get in contact with you? How do you want people to approach or, get to know about you a little bit more?
Sure. Well, you can head to our website, which is Pointer Remote Roles, and that's ROLES, not rolls like at the bakery, which has been caused for quite confusion with some people.
Okay.
I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so Joe Palmer, feel free, PALMER. But we're on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter as well, if you want to find us on any of those things. But we've got a really nifty newsletter that you can sign up for on the bottom of our website there that keeps you in the loop of what the bits and pieces that we're doing. There's also, we're about to relaunch our a hub of content for where you can upskill yourselves. It's a whole lot of free content there, but we've also got e-learning courses that you can do. So for working remotely effectively, but also for leaders and managers, that if you're really wanting to actually sharpen up on how you're managing your team. So around performance management, culture, data security, these sorts of things. We've got some e-learning courses that you can find on our website as well. But also we've been partnering with a remote specialist lawyer called the Remote Expert, and we've got some bits and pieces on our website as well. So like a work health and safety audit for your employees working from home, a remote work policy that's done for you that you can tweak for your business specifics and those sorts of things, but just some of the legalities around it as well, which is really good, just having some of those templates and things to work from. But look, we're always really happy to chat if you are a regional community or a rural community that would be interested in talking to us further as well, as far as coming and running a capacity building program in your community. We have an expressions of interest form on our community page on the website as well. But it's just, look, it's really, I love talking to businesses that are happy to think outside the box with how they build their team and how they're accessing skills. And look, we're working with actually a couple of companies that are doing some pretty major hiring and looking with them at actually hiring in this sort of hub concept of still everyone working remotely, but hiring within a 100K radius of a remote ready community. And so those teams or those groups of employees still have colleagues in their area. They can go and work in a co-working space a couple of days a week, having that human contact and team contact and things. But for a business, they can send a trainer to a country town for a week, or they can do, again, an off-site is on-site for the people that live near there. But just a really amazing way to engage people, but also the communities love it. Like, we've got local government that is like, okay, well, you make us one of these hubs, and they can use our boardrooms for meetings. They can use, like, we will start a co-working space for them. We will create hot desks in council buildings, like all of these things that the communities want you to do this. So if that's interesting for businesses that are listening to this that might be interested in engaging, especially if you're building a specific team, those are also the sorts of things that we can do, which is really, really, really cool.
It is really cool. And I think that's the way we're going to be moving to going forward. So, to benefit people, communities is a beautiful thing to do.
Thanks. We think so too.
Well, thank you, Joe, for your time today. It was lovely to have you on our podcast, and I'll put all the links to get in contact with you on the show notes that'll take you through, and people can get in contact with you. But thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Helen.